Hey guys, I've heard a few people talking about importing their own C8 Corvette if Holden asks too much for them. But can you actually do that? Can you bring in your own C8? The vehicle importing laws are about to change in Australia, so stay tuned and I'll tell you all about the rules that cover importing Corvettes and in particular the C8 Corvette. To start this off, we'll talk about who makes the laws regarding importing cars into Australia. These laws are controlled by the Department of Infrastructure, Transport, Cities and Regional Development, which is a department within the Australian federal government. Getting the car registered once you get it in here falls under the legislation of the various state governments and varies slightly from state to state. And the first rule to remember is you can't import a vehicle into Australia without first obtaining a vehicle import permit. And this has to be done before the car leaves for Australia. So you can't sneak one in and then hope to find a way of registering it. It'll get sent back out again, or you'll pay a fortune in government storage while it's sorted out. That's if it can be sorted out. I won't look at the state registration requirements in this video because it's a topic all of its own, but I think it's safe to say that if you can bring the car into Australia under the federal government's rules, you can probably get it registered by the state you live in. This is of course apart from the very obvious exceptions that I'll bring up when I go through the new import rules. So firstly, let's look at the general rule about importing late model cars. Under the current rules, if the same vehicle model, year and configuration was sold new in Australia and was built after 1988, it can't be imported. So straight away I can say that if Holden imports the 2020 C8 Corvette to Australia, then under the current rules, no one else can import it. However, the rules are changing, so let's look at the new rules. These new rules are called the 2019 Import Regulation Changes. And these changes have a lot to do with the end of vehicle manufacturing in Australia and were originally planned to include the parallel import of new cars. In other words, any new cars could have been independently imported into Australia, even if the original manufacturer, for instance Ford, Toyota or GM, was bringing them in. This law would have certainly allowed us to bring in the C8 Corvette regardless of it being sold by GM in Australia. However, there has been a total backflip by the government due to lobbying by the big car companies. So is anyone really surprised? The car companies objected on the basis that they would end up being responsible for the warranty, safety recalls and spare parts, even though they didn't import that particular car themselves. I can see arguments for and against this, which again I won't go into now. But regardless of any arguments, this parallel import of new cars is not going ahead, and the new regulation, which doesn't include parallel imports, was passed by the Senate in November 2018 and by royal decree in December 2018. These new regulations were supposed to start 1 year from that date, but up to an 18-month delay has now been approved to allow time to get the new governing structure in place. However, the new import criteria will commence from December the 10th, 2019, using the current government structure. So the existing departments and procedures will still be used, but the new eligibility or criteria for imports will start on December the 10th, 2019, very soon. So what are the new rules that dictate which cars can be imported? First, we'll discuss cars older than 25 years, and then cars newer than 25 years. The cars that can be imported must fit under one of the four following criteria. Number 1, the 25-year rule. This is for cars built more than 25 years ago. With the new regulations, a rolling 25-year rule will apply, meaning in 2020 we'll be able to bring in a 1995 C4 Corvette without any fuss. This is a change from the old law that said cars built before 1989 could be brought in, effectively saying cars had to be over 30 years old. Now it's a rolling 25-year rule, but note that it must be 25 years up to the month it was built, not just the year. A C4 built in June 95 can't be imported until June 2020, and so on. It'll be up to the individual states as to what compliance requirements need to be met, but it does seem that in most states, cars on a club permit will have less stringent requirements. I can't help but think about the first of the C5s not being that far away. I've always wanted a C5, but converting one to right-hand drive, as we must do now, is out of the question when you think about the 50k or so it would cost to convert a car that's only worth 20k in the US. The 25-year rule is certainly a plus. Number 2, the SEV register. Cars newer than 25 years old are covered by the SEV or SEV register, where SEV stands for Special and Enthusiast Vehicle. As the name implies, these are cars that are in demand by enthusiasts, but not sold in Australia as an official import. There are some clarifications covering what is an official import that will stop you importing one, but again I won't go into those here. There are 6 different criteria for a vehicle to be available under the SEV register, and the vehicle only needs to meet one of these. First one is performance. This is based on the power to weight ratio. Again, I won't go into the formula here, but I firmly believe all Corvettes under 25 years old would comply. So newer Corvettes, up to including C7, are definitely eligible here. They've never been imported by GM Holden to Australia. Second, environmental. Low emissions cars, particularly hybrids and microcars, fit within this one. There's no relevance here to a Corvette. Third is mobility. Vehicles with things such as wheelchair ramps. Again, no relevance to Corvettes. The next one is rarity. Ultra-low volume cars, such as a Bugatti Veyron. This seems to be a special rule for very wealthy car collectors. These don't need right-hand drive conversions if no right-hand drive versions were built, but the state rules would currently preclude them from being registered. This means you can bring them in, but doesn't guarantee you can get them registered for road use, except in the Northern Territory, but things might change there. There may be some relevance here to Callaway and Lingenfelter Corvettes. This could be a way to get in a left-hand drive late model Vette, but it may need to be registered in the Northern Territory. But interesting. There's also left-hand drive. Any left-hand drive that can't be brought in right-hand drive is eligible, but must be converted to right-hand drive for compliance. This is another category where the C5, C6 and C7 Corvettes fit into the SEV register. Finally, there's camper vans and motorhomes, but there's no relevance here to us Corvette people. Number 3, race and track cars. Cars can be imported for racing use only, but a genuine use for racing needs to be established, and the car can never be road registered. So, Corvette-wise, if you want a Corvette track car, you can bring one in, left-hand drive and all, up to a C7. But remember, you'll never be able to get it registered. Number 4, a personal import. This rule allows migrants moving to Australia, or Australians returning home after a long period overseas, to bring their own personal vehicle with them. The time frame on this is 12 months. This means you must have been away for 12 months, the car owned for 12 months, and the car actually used for 12 months. In other words, not just stored. You need to have proof of all the above. So there it is, the only way I can see of bringing in a C8 Corvette. There's the new rules for importing cars into Australia. So I guess the bottom line is, we need to hold our breath and wait and see what Holden are planning to sell them for. Okay, thanks for watching. If you liked the video and learned something from it, I'd really appreciate a big thumbs up. And click the subscribe button to easily find my videos. And ring the bell if you want an alert every time a new one is uploaded. Look out too for my new website, Vet News Online. It'll be fully up and running very soon. There's a link to it below. But for now, happy vetting, and I hope to see you again real soon.